Welcome, everybody, to a great, powerful evening of conversation. We've got our Z Cares Back to School Youth Panel discussion. We are looking forward to a great, powerful conversation. We've got some awesome people that are going to share some stories and answer some of the questions that we've been receiving. So I am going to turn this over to Samantha as your moderator.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the ZK's Back to School panel discussion. Just to remind everyone before we introduce ourselves, you can submit questions via Zoom in the chat. And also, if you're on Facebook Live, you can also enter those in the comments. So my name is Sam. I am co-founder of ZK's. I am also a student athlete. I'm going into my sophomore year of college and I'm studying psychology and business. So let's meet the rest of the panelists. So Andrew, did you want to introduce yourself first? Oh, we can't hear you. Okay, Katie, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Katie. I am a pastry student at a junior college in California. I currently work at a bakery, and mental health is very important to me.
Okay, Laura, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Laura. I'm majoring in liberal arts. I'm planning on becoming an elementary school teacher in the future. So I just think it's really important to understand anxiety and all of that stuff.
Patrick, did you want to introduce yourself now?
Yeah, sure. Good evening, everyone. My name's Patrick. I'm an incoming sophomore at University of San Diego, and I'm minoring in psychology, majoring in finance. And some jobs I've done truck driving this summer. I've coached basketball, and I've also babysat. So I've done a pretty good amount this summer.
Vanessa, did you want to introduce yourself now?
Hi, I'm Vanessa. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist in Pleasanton, and I'm also a credentialed school counselor. So I'm looking forward to being here with everybody and just hearing some information about how people are taking care of themselves during all of this, and also hoping to give you guys some good tools that might be useful as you transition back to school.
Thank you. Okay, we'll try.
Is my mic working now?
Yes, go ahead.
All right, perfect. Okay, so I'm Andrew. I'm from Centerville, California, but I'm coming to you live from New York City because I'm in the process of moving out of my apartment because I go to college here. So I'm majoring in music, and yeah, that's about it.
Perfect. Okay, so now that you guys have all met our panelists, let's get into the discussion. So our first topic today will be validation of feelings. So my first question is for Vanessa. Can you talk a little bit about going back to school during such a stressful time and making sure students are really validating their feelings?
Absolutely. I think this is really important. Obviously, the transition to a new school year is always a little bit anxiety provoking because we're starting a new year. For some people, we're even starting new levels, maybe transitioning from middle school to high school or from elementary school to high school, or for some folks, maybe they're transitioning from high school to college. So anytime we have a transition, it's always a tricky time and important to be taking care of ourselves. I think that this transition this year is kind of a double whammy because we're not only transitioning to a new school year, but we're transitioning to a completely new format of learning that we might not be used to, even if we did a little bit of it in the spring before this year. So there's a lot going on, and I think that it's really human of us to be feeling anxious and maybe not even really knowing how we feel about that situation. So taking time to think about how you're feeling and let that be okay, because we're all figuring it out and having to be kind of flexible and change our routines.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Katie, can you talk a little bit about when you felt depressed and how you kind of validated what you were experiencing?
Absolutely. So at the time, I didn't really realize it was depression and that was how I was feeling. there was a musical that came out around the time. It's called Waitress, and one of the songs is called She Used to Be Mine. And those lyrics really emphasize, it put how I was feeling into words in the way that I couldn't. And I would like to share a little bit with you. It's, she's imperfect, but she tries. She is good, but she lies. She is hard on herself. She is broken and she won't ask for help. And that is exactly how I was feeling. I didn't know how to talk to people about it. I didn't want to seem dramatic, but I couldn't get myself to get out of bed. I had panic attacks in the morning before going to school, and it was really hard. And finally, I think I sort of told my mom through songs and through music, because that was the one way I knew how to do it. And, you know, we looked at all of these things, and it was like, okay, maybe you're depressed, and that's okay. Like, people feel this way and it's not your fault. And that's something that was really, really eye-opening to me, is because nothing huge like triggered it, you know, like you don't have to have this big reason to feel depressed or to be anxious. And yeah, I've been on my mental health journey for over 4 years now, and you know, I still get some depressive episodes, but I recognize my symptoms now, that I can pull myself out of it. And I have such a great support system like Z Cares that just educates us, and it normalizes what we might have all gone through.
Yeah, thank you. I always love listening to Katie talk. We have a sit down with Sam, and it's probably one of my favorites. I love her. Okay, so jumping into our next topic, adjusting your routines to your needs. So how do you set your daily routines to keep yourself motivated and happy? Laura, can you talk a little bit about that one?
Yes. So basically at the beginning of quarantine, I was very unmotivated. Like, you know, you have the online classes and you're like, oh, yay, like I don't have to actually like get up and do any schoolwork. But then I realized like I was waking up at like noon every single day. I was like, okay, I need to do a little bit better than this. So I started just having a set time for when I would wake up. I did 10 a.m. So it's like kind of early, kind of late, but like I can still like sleep in and stuff. So I was still having that like good night of that long hours of sleep and stuff. But I was also getting work done, which I feel like is very important. I started doing different activities and stuff where like I would wake up, I would set aside a couple things a day that would be just for myself, like self-care kind of things, like meditating. I got really into meditating and stuff, and just focusing on like my diet. I feel like that's really important, because when I'm focusing on my diet, I feel like a new, like healthier person and everything. And it makes you feel good, you know, when you have a good diet. I would also try to like go outside, like at least for like an hour every single day. I feel like that also really helps, because being stuck inside, like doing all of your work, like just in your bed, because that's how quarantine was, like you could just do all of your work in your bed. I feel like it was important for me to go outside and to go to different settings to do my work. That also really helped. So I would like do my homework outside and stuff, and that was a good thing that I liked doing. But yeah.
No, I totally agree. One thing that personally I found helpful is making sure that you're not doing the same thing every day, because I find that when we start getting kind of like in the same routine every single day without like changes really, that's when you kind of find yourself not being as motivated. But when you have different things that you're doing each day, personally for me, I was like, oh, like I have this today, I have that tomorrow. Like I was more motivated to do things just because they were new and exciting. So, you know, like try new things, you know, yeah, but that's perfect. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah.
Katie, how do you make the most of your online learning experience? Because I know you've been doing this for a little bit longer than the rest of us.
Yeah, so for my last 3 years of high school, I did an independent study program. It wasn't completely online. I went in once a week to meet with my advisor, just to check in with me and see how things were going. But for the majority, everything was online. And some tips that I have learned is that you really want to separate your sleeping space from your workspace, and you don't want to stress yourself out doing homework and things like that in your bedroom, because your bedroom should be a good place, like a sanctuary for you. It should feel like you just want good energy in there. And when you're doing homework, that might not always be the case. It's just good to separate your work from your bedroom and minimizing distractions. Like for me, my first year, I had my iPad going on in one place watching TV while I was doing my work, and it just wasn't a good idea for me to be doing that, because that's not how it would be in a classroom. You know, my attention would have to be fully on my work. And so I switched over to music. I really just set aside a specific time of the day where I sit down and do my work. If you do something just a little bit every single day, for me, all of my work was due at one specific day. So like Monday I would do history, Tuesday I would do English, and something like that. So if you create a schedule for yourself, that can really, really help. And like Laura said, you can go outside and you can read a little bit outside. You could just change it up a bit, but I would really recommend working at a table, at a desk, minimal distractions, and if you can, outside of your bedroom.
And one thing that
I know.
Sorry. One thing
No,
that
go ahead.
mention was that sometimes it's really helpful to have a ritual that kind of signifies the end of work time. Usually we would have that be like our walk home from school or the end of the school day, then we go home. And because all of those things are happening in the same space, it's really helpful to have something that signifies the end of our work time, so then we can have our free time and not have them all combined.
Mm-hmm. And set a time where you can go get a snack. Like, you know, you would have passing period. Get yourself a snack, eat lunch separate from doing your work if you can, and just, you know, give yourself little breaks so that you're not working 8 hours straight.
Yeah, those are such great tips. I know I'm like super guilty of like doing all my work in my bed and like I'm watching TV while I'm like taking a class and stuff. So I will definitely be using these tips. So thank you so much. Now we're gonna go into our next topic, which is staying connected and involved. So Patrick, how do you stay involved and connected through activities?
Yeah, excuse me. Obviously the circumstances right now are difficult to be connected face to face with quarantine and coronavirus. But I think a good point to make it clear is being connected doesn't have to be just physical, nor does it have to be with people. It can be connected to yourself. I believe in like self-care and self-examination, all that kind of stuff, and like connecting with yourself of things that are wrong that you don't necessarily kind of focus on throughout your normal course of the day. And with being connected, busyness doesn't necessarily mean you're connected. If you're constantly doing things 24/7, I think it's important to have grace with yourself and have that balance with your connections with other people. It's a difficult adjustment right now. I'm still adjusting, and of course, heading to the new school year, I'm going to be an RA, and I have to find ways to connect these incoming freshmen to my university, trying to hope that they can feel a part of the community and feel connected. And it's kind of something we're all working out. And I think it's important to just keep in mind that we're imperfect, and everything right now we're going through together in different ways, and that to each their own with whatever is to be connected. But whatever it is, I mean, if you really love that, if you want to be connected with it, go for it. Don't hesitate. If it's one thing, if it's 10 things, whatever that is, I think it's important to prioritize those activities that you love daily, weekly, whatever.
Yeah, thank you. I 100% agree with everything that you said. I also just want to kind of like talk about, I mean, me personally, I am part of a team, and I really find like that is such a big part of like why I'm kind of, you know, being able to talk to like more people like in quarantine, you know, because I'm like part of something. And I really encourage, you know, like incoming freshmen, or like if you are like bored and you have like a lot of time on your hands, and you know, you just don't really know what to do, I really encourage like joining something. You know, just because we can't all be together doesn't mean that you still can't join something, you know, like virtually. Like people are still you know, meeting on Zoom and like stuff like that. There's still things going on, although you can't be with people, there's still things that are going on. So I really recommend, connecting and, reaching out to like groups and all of that other stuff. But thank you so much.
Can I add one quick thing?
Oh, yes, go ahead.
If you can't find a group to join, make your own. Seriously, it's super easy. Reach out to a couple friends, be like, hey, do you want to do a book club? Do you want to do a Bible study? Do you want to try out recipes together and we can compare things? It's so easy to create your own group. So if you can't find one to join, just make your own.
Katie brings up
exactly.
a great point, because we kind of have to innovate right now to create, safe groups. And a good point is sometimes I go biking with a couple friends, which I never did before quarantine, and now we're biking weekly. So it's like, it's a good way to start it, initiate it, and I'm sure whoever you reach out to will be amused by you reaching out to them and will definitely like that and appreciate that very much.
Totally.
Yeah. So before we get into the next question, I just wanted to remind everyone that you can submit questions via comment, and if you're on Facebook, same thing, via comment. So make sure you're submitting questions and we'll answer them at the end. So my next question is for the entire panel. So we'll just kind of like go around and like each person can say like one or two things. But the question is, how can you check in with your family and friends that you might not be able to see? So if someone wants to take that first.
I can start. I think a good way is when you're talking or reaching out to your family or friends, especially if it's been a while or they seem standoffish or it just hasn't been as connected, try to pose open-ended questions. Try to elaborate. Don't be so quick, with how are you? Good. Yes. We can all do that small talk, but it's important right now that we kind of express and externalize those feelings or whatever's going on and catching up. And sometimes an open-ended question can get the ball rolling, and it can kind of rekindle those lost relationships.
I can jump in next. I think that naturally we probably think about our friends, or we think about people that we're close to more so than we actually share with them that's happening. So when we find that a person is in our thoughts, it's always a good idea just to reach out and just say, hey, I'm thinking about you. And that gives them the option to respond back or not, but it just lets them know that you're thinking of them. One of the things that I like to do to connect with my friends also is if I see like a funny video or a funny meme or something that might remind me of them, I'll send that over as a way just to get a conversation going, so that we can stay connected as well.
I'll go ahead and go. Up until quarantine, I have a really big family. I have a lot of cousins. We would host cousins game night at my house every month where I could see all my cousins, their spouses, and my nieces and nephew. And we haven't been able to do that for the last 7 months. So I've been trying to organize us to do a Zoom and just, sometimes we'll text each other. My cousin's having a really small wedding this weekend. And we all can't be there, which really, really sucks because we're such a close family. But I think we could, talking my family specifically, like we could be better at texting each other and just asking how the kids are doing, if they could send pictures. And like Patrick said, it's so easy to be like, hey, how are you? And you say you're good, but are we all really good? It's like, how have you been taking care of yourself? Like, what have you been doing during quarantine? It's just, things like that where you ask more meaningful questions.
I definitely agree with all of those statements. Something that I had been doing like at the very beginning of quarantine, because you couldn't really like physically see your friends, but it was still a good way to like stay connected and stuff. Just like Zoom calls, that's what we would do, or FaceTimes or whatever. But also another thing I did is my friends and I, we would all like get our own little picnic blankets and stuff and set them up like 6 feet away from each other and stuff. And we would like have little picnics like that. It was a really nice way to connect with them. And especially since we had all been at school, because we were all freshmen in college, so we hadn't seen each other in a while. So it was just a really nice thing that I thought it was a good idea, a good social distancing idea for everyone to stay connected.
Another thing that I just thought of that two of my closest friends and I have been doing are watching movies via Netflix Party or this thing called 27. We can like FaceTime each other and talk while we watch the movie at the exact same time. It's like you're having a movie night with your friends. And it's just another way to connect. It's a little bit more of a different way. But yeah, it's been fun doing that.
Also just one really fast thing. I know kind of like what all of you guys were saying, you know, like if you're thinking about someone, I think Vanessa, you said this, if you're like thinking about someone and, you know, like they kind of just like pop up in your head, like literally like text them, be like, hey, like, how are you? I know like when I get those texts, like, oh, how are you doing? Like it literally like makes my entire day. It just makes me like in a 10 times better mood. So really just like, you know, like the little things, they really go a long way. So, you know, like keep like communicating with your friends. Like if you live on the other side of the country or you live in a different state, like you have your phones, you have technology, like use it to your advantage, because that's really why it's here. So yeah.
And one thing
Andrew, did you have, oh, sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to mention, I know that we're in a time where kind of technology is taking over, but we can also take things back a little bit old school and write letters, especially if you have family members who are a little bit older and maybe not so tech savvy. Sometimes that's a really nice way to check in. The act of writing can be really therapeutic. So if there's things that are on your mind or that you want to express, that's a really good way to kind of get some self-care in while you're also reaching out to somebody else.
Getting something in the mail is always exciting.
So great.
Yeah.
Like it's not bills.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Did anyone have anything else that they wanted to share for this question? No? Okay. So jumping into our next topic, which is self-care. Andrew, could you talk like a little bit how do you go about managing your own self-care?
Yeah, so I got a couple points for that. So first, I think the biggest thing that made like a substantive improvement in my overall well-being is routine. And it's kind of funny that I say that now when people are feeling like routine fatigued because of quarantine, you know, where like the days are melding into each other and things are becoming monotonous. And I totally agree with that. But for people who don't really have a routine, switching to a routine is like such a life changer because, you know, with your sleep cycles, all of a sudden every day you're getting much higher quality sleep. And you know, that's going to affect how you feel throughout the day. And I think just, you know, to grow as a person and to work on those long-term goals, you really need to have a routine. So that's like the biggest, that's like the foundation for everything that you as a person is going to like flourish off of. If every day is different, everything's jumbled, your room is a mess or something, and you feel disorganized, then it just makes it like 10 times harder to accomplish things. And as somebody already previously mentioned, another part of self-care is diet. That's something I take super seriously. Like breakfast, lunch, and dinner is always like, I keep it consistent, I keep it healthy, like all whole foods. And then that coupled with exercise is definitely like a dynamic duo. Like for instance, part of my daily routine is working out. And so I do that right before I eat lunch, and I kind of keep it as a, like I delay lunch until after I exercise to keep it as like an incentive. So even if I'm not in the mood to work out, I will say I'm not having lunch until I work out. And so that gives that incentive to push myself to work out. And working out in general is just such a huge stress reliever, you know, like, especially when you have that part of your routine, like overall your mood is going to totally stabilize along with, you know, getting quality sleep. And a third point the last point I wanted to mention is like before going to bed, something that I was a chronic or as a chronic phone user before I would go to bed. And that was a habit that I formed in middle school, and it carried all the way through high school. And like the day I decided, the day I decided to stop using my phone before bed and like read a book, like my sleep improved a million times. And I try to get my mom to do this and she doesn't want to do it. And because phones are just so addicting, you know? So like that blue light, studies show like that blue light will mess with your REM cycles and your ability to fall asleep, because when you're looking at your phone, you're getting that constant stimulation where you're getting notifications from this app. This app has like new things going on. And so like there are a million things you can do on the phone, but if you have a book in front of you, like there's one thing, it's just this linear storyline, you know, it's just that one thing that you can slowly kind of do and until your brain starts to shut down. Whenever I'm using my phone, there's no point where my brain's like shutting down unless I've been doing it for like 3 hours. So I think just ditching the phone before bed is such a good thing, and I recommend anybody to do it who does that.
Great, thank you so much. I totally like agree with like all of that. Those are really good points. I know Laura, you are really big into like self-care and stuff like that. So did you have anything that you wanted to add or share?
Yeah, so I really got into like during quarantine, I really got into like making lists and stuff. That was like my thing, was making lists of everything I had to do that day or everything I had to do in like that hour. I don't know. But that really, really helped me stay organized, because like there's studies and stuff that say like if you keep yourself organized, you'll be a lot more motivated to do things like that. Like, you know, when you're like sitting in a super messy room, it's like, oh, like that's just one extra thing that I have to worry about. So I'm going to focus a little bit more on that than I should be like on my homework or something like that. But at the very beginning of like quarantine, like I was a very busy person. I like really didn't do anything in like the self-care kind of section. Like I noticed that like the past few months. So like what I've been doing is like I just try to do, whether it's like reading a book, I just got into like reading books and stuff, which I was never into before. So I've been doing that, and like meditating, just taking time for yourself to think about your emotions, to feel your emotions. That's a very important thing to do when you're having self-care. Like it can be face masks, it can be just being by yourself. Like it's a very important thing to do. And I didn't even realize that until the past few months. And it has changed my life, like just being able to spend time with myself. And I think that's a really important thing. You have to enjoy spending time with yourself before you can enjoy having fun with your friend or whoever else. Well, that's something I learned, but yeah.
Can I add on
Yeah.
to what Laura said?
Oh, yeah.
I used to think that like self-care was selfish of me. It was being vain. It was like vanity, but it's so important to take care of yourself before you can take care of others. Because that's the thing, is like I would just pour myself into other people so much that I would just be drained, and I would need to take a couple days to kind of almost like regain my strength back on being able to take care of myself first, because that you can't take care of others when there's nothing left in yourself.
Sorry,
I
I just wanted to add on to what Katie's saying. The misconception that self-care is selfish care. One of the leaders today at my RA meetings brought up just a one-liner that you cannot give what you don't have. And I thought that was really profound, because we were mentioning to each other things that we like about ourselves, and we were having trouble doing that. And we were trouble expressing what we find, what we're proud of ourselves. But, he mentioned to us, we each have that, but we have to understand that, we have to have a little grace with ourselves, appreciate ourselves more. And it's important to do so daily and regularly. So.
And for anybody that's struggling to add self-care into the routine, you can start small. Self-care can be a minute, it can be hours. And so if you're not in a regular self-care routine, it's not impossible to get started. Just take 1 minute, and for this 1 minute, I'm going to be silent, or for this 1 minute, I'm going to read an article. And I mean, there's a million ways that you can incorporate self-care. It's just about finding those things that are meaningful to you.
Yeah, I think self-care is definitely something that's kind of more like personalized. So, like, like for me, like I like to watch sunsets and that's like my self-care, like that what makes me happy and like at peace. But, like self-care can be really anything that you enjoy and something that makes you happy. So, like Vanessa said, like it can be something small or it can be like something big. So really whatever makes you happy. And I definitely like agree, like you have to like make sure that you're putting yourself first before you can really, put yourself out for like other people. I know like I definitely learned that that's something that's really important is make sure that you like yourself are good. Like you're taking care of yourself, you're really like putting all this positivity in yourself so you can, like project that. So, with that being said, moving into our next topic, which is resources. Before I get into this, this is our last topic that we have kind of like plotted out. So make sure that you are getting your comments in via Zoom and Facebook Live so we can answer that in our next section. So, Vanessa, what are some resources that are available in schools?
So yeah, with everybody going back to school, depending on what grade level you're entering in, there's always school, or most often there's school counselors. So school counselors are a great point of contact. Even before that, your teachers can also be a great resource. Maybe you don't know who the school counselors are, or maybe you don't know what resources are available. Teachers can also be a great resource to find out what's available. School counselors also work with community agencies and things, and if they're not the right person for you to talk to, they're able to connect you to those agencies. Most colleges have wellness centers of some sort, so you have the ability to get support there. There's also crisis hotlines and things that young people have access to, and a lot of those have text capabilities now. So for people who maybe hesitate to make that phone call and feel more comfortable via email or via text, those are resources that are available for moments of crisis, but then also to be able to connect you to other things outside of that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Those are great resources. Also, I just wanted to talk about some resources that ZCares offers. If you go to zcares.org and go to our resource page, we have a ton of resources listed for all of you, literally at your fingertips. Also, Sit Down with Sam, which is something that I personally do. It's just I interview, like your everyday person. They talk about, things that they've struggled with, anxiety, depression, whatever it may be, and, like how they've gotten through it and what helped them. And really my goal of like creating that was to help connect other people, because I feel like so many of us like sit and we think we're like the only one that's going through this and we think that we're so alone. But my hope is that, you'll find someone that you really connect with, something that they felt, something that they experienced, and you really connect with them and you find hope in that. So that's really my reason of making Sit Down with Sam. So please go check that out. I think there's 10 or 11 episodes now. And again, that's at zcares.org, and you can find that, I think, under the content page, or, it's on zcares.org. But okay, so now we're going to get into some of the audience's questions. So if you have any questions right now is really the time to ask them in your chats. So make sure you ask them right now, and yeah, we'll get into those.
All right, so audience questions. We've got some great ones coming in for you guys. So I'm going to start with this one's coming from a parent's point of view. So particularly many of you are college students. So from a parent's point of view, how do we make sure that our college students are okay when they're back to school? So they've now left the home, they're back to school under the pandemic. How do we know that they're okay? How do we, as parents, have that connection to feel good about your, how you're doing?
I don't mind sharing. I think a good way is kind of have a little persistence and have questions in which their dynamic allows them to speak, kind of gives them an opportunity to share and get things off their chest and vent with them. And so I always appreciate when my parents are really honest and they just allow me to say however I feel. And so in this instance, if they're trying to figure out the situation with high school, college, middle school, whatever it is, whatever circumstance it is, let them share. And sometimes they want to share, like I know for me, sometimes I share a word, whether it's just I'm good. Some days I share a whole essay, whatever it is. But keep asking those questions. We all appreciate it, and especially affirm them, reaffirm them with whatever it is. Tell them, you're proud, show them your love. I think it's important to have a lot of love in a family, and expressing that to your child is huge. It can inspire them. It can help them push and keep going because they don't have a teacher necessarily in their face. They don't have students next to them. So you're the physical interaction. You're the one that kind of look to keep them going and keep them excited to learn. So.
Something that I think that is really helpful. So like a lot of the times with like parents and kids, like the parents sometimes will be like nagging them, like, oh, like, what did you do? What happened? But I think a really important step to making sure that your child is okay is just to like listen non-judgmentally. Like that's a big thing because your kids aren't going to share what's wrong in their life or how they're feeling if they don't feel like they're in a safe space or they feel like they're being judged. So I think definitely having no judgment when they're talking to you is a very important thing. But yeah.
Beautiful answers. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So next question. This one's really directed at Vanessa, but I think others can weigh in. But the question is, what are the signs that your child is experiencing anxiety about distance learning during the pandemic?
So I'll start off by saying that I am imagining that anxiety is going to be heightened across the board for everybody going into this new format. And even more so within the first few weeks as we're adjusting to what that looks like. So I definitely encourage parents to be aware of their own anxiety. I think parents are also experiencing a lot of anxiety of not knowing what this looks like. And so then because they're feeling anxious, then that energy can make its way to our students. I think that some of the key signs that anxiety is maybe something that needs to be addressed is if the frequency of anxiety symptoms is increasing, so it's happening regularly over a longer period of time, or the intensity of the anxiety is elevated. So when they're having a big emotion related to an assignment or whatever, that the reaction might seem larger than the size of the problem. And certainly reassurance seeking is something that we see a lot in anxiety. So maybe asking a lot of questions or thinking that they're not doing things correctly and asking for more consistent help, or maybe they need you more in certain ways than they did before. Sometimes that can be a sign of anxiety. And some of it is specific to like everyone is different, and the way their anxiety manifests can be different. So I hope that answers the question, but I think that maybe we also have some insight from some of our people who have experienced anxiety themselves from their perspective that might be able to share too.
So a quick follow-up to that, Vanessa, is right behind that is, how do I know if my anxiety is getting to the point where I might need to get help?
I think if you're asking that question, that you're probably there. And it's never too early to get help and support. I think that a lot of times people view going to therapy or getting that support as something that's taboo. However, if I was feeling sick, I would call my doctor immediately and schedule an appointment. So if I'm feeling anxious, the same rule would apply. Why wouldn't I go and seek support just to get a little bit of respite from those feelings? Developing coping strategies is great for anybody, whether anxiety is to the point of being diagnosed with an anxiety disorder or not. So I would say that if you're questioning it, that it might be time to reach out and see what help it might be out there.
I think we all kind of want to look for this ultimate low and think, oh, I'm at the lowest point of my life, I need this. But you could be like in the medium range where something like your anxiety is interfering with your focusing or just everyday tasks. For me, it was so hard for me to be able to talk to the mailman or just these little things. It doesn't have to be something so huge where we feel like, okay, now's the time I need help. It's more like, maybe it would be great to get a professional to talk this out through me. Like friends and family are great, but if you're comfortable with sharing how you're feeling with a professional, they can offer you insight that your friends and family can't always give you. And that's what I found personally with therapy, is that having this outside view of my life has changed my life, really.
Yeah, I literally, I love therapy. Like, I would go to therapy, like, even if I was, like, so happy. Like, I love just, like, talking to somebody and just, like, venting, or, like, whatever I really just, like, want to get off my chest that day. It's so just, like, freeing almost. So, yeah, like, go to therapy.
Well said. Couldn't agree more. Next question is for Andrew. Andrew, you mentioned that you are a music major. How does music help in your anxiety?
Well, music's always been like sort of a stress reliever, especially if you're a musician or, you know, you consider yourself an avid listener. But yeah, being a musician, like not only just listening to music is 50% of the situation. The other 50% being playing music, because you know, just picking up an instrument, even if you can't really play, like even if you've never played before, just sitting at a piano is so relieving, because it's just sort of you and your two hands and a bunch of keys that make a bunch of different sounds. So just that tactile feeling of like playing an instrument, and the fact that it sort of forces you to focus 100% on doing it is, I think, and then you being able to express yourself through that instrument is what makes it so stress relieving. So yeah, it's kind of the fact that I'm majoring in it, and that's something that I do like every day. You know, it's an inherent part of my life, is makes that sort of stress like very easily relieved, because I have that go-to whenever I'm feeling stressed. And if you don't play, you know, music, listening to music, so many people use that because it's you know, it's stress relieving.
That's great. Thanks, Andrew, for sharing. All right, another question. These are great questions coming in, guys. This is to the panel. So if anyone wants to weigh in, can you talk a little bit about how you're preparing for the upcoming isolated holidays? You know, those holidays aren't too far away.
I don't want to think about that. Holidays are
I know.
huge in my family. This past year, I cooked my family the whole Thanksgiving dinner, and that was like the greatest joy for me. My happiness comes from cooking food and baking, and seeing my family's faces when they get to eat my food is like one of the happiest things in my life. And I might be preparing a Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner for just me and my mom. And that's kind of hard, but I think maybe once we get there, we will all set a set time where we'll all eat dinner together over Zoom. And I don't know. I don't know. It'll be really different.
All right, well, thanks, Katie, for sharing. All right, we've got one more question for you guys, and then you can move into your final words. Let's see. What do I do if it just feels like too much is coming at me and I get overwhelmed and I can't prioritize myself?
I think what's really important for that, because I felt that way too, like I just have too much on my plate and I can't focus on anything. It's just like so overwhelming. Something that I do is like I make lists. I said that before, and I prioritize like what I have to do first. And just having that list is really, it's a good thing to have just because you can see like what you have to do. And I feel like just also another like stress reliever is just like crossing something off of a list. Like I feel so accomplished when I just cross something off of my list. But I definitely think that like lists, that makes a lot, it's a very life changing, at least for me. But yeah.
Yeah, I definitely like I really just like to like jam as much things as I possibly can do and like stay busy just because that's like what I like to do. But sometimes I find myself being like I have way too many things to do at like one time. And I actually had a life coach at one time, and she told me like all the time, she would always tell me like what's like the most important thing to you. And I'd kind of like list, like Laura was like saying, like I'd kind of like list them. So like this is what's most important to me to like the bottom, like the least important. And then I'd kind of like ask myself like, do I really like this? Do I really want to do this? And if I, like if it wasn't something that I really wanted to do, or if it wasn't something that was really important to me, like I would just like simply not do it. And that's kind of hard if it's like something that you've been doing for a long time or like something that's like important. But really just like listening to yourself, like I only want to do the things that I really want to do. And I, if I'm really busy, like unfortunately I don't have time for the things that people may ask me to do, or like whatever. But I just think like finding what's like the most important to you, and you really just sticking with that until you can really balance. So yeah.
To follow what Sam said, if it's something that you can reject, like, or it's something that's not completely 100% necessary and mandatory, to not be afraid to say no. Like if it's a friend who was asking for a favor and they've been your friend for a long time, so you sort of feel that it's necessary to do it for them. Explain the situation and say, I'm sorry, I can't do it. Or, and that's in the case of like an interpersonal task, whereas other things that are just completely personal, don't be afraid to like pick and choose. And like Sam said, make, like prioritize certain things, if it's a bunch of hobbies or something, and it's something that you're going to have to skip doing, you have to like weigh out the pros and cons and say, is it worth it for me to lose 3 hours of sleep just so I can do this thing that's not really 100% necessary, So to always, going back to what we talked about with self-care, to always prioritize your mental well-being when hashing out your daily plans and what you're going to do for the week, etc.
And I think the more intense
100%.
our emotions, the more important it becomes to do that self-care. That's kind of like your body or your mind signal to be like, I need to do something for me and take that little break or whatever it is. So give yourself permission to do that when you can. And I know specifically as it pertains to distance learning, I think you can also let your teachers know that you're feeling really overwhelmed, and give the people that are putting these expectations on you some insight into how it's affecting you, so that adjustments can be made, so that not only so it's not viewed that you're shirking your obligations that may be necessary, but that you're having a hard time, and there are ways that can be accommodated. So communicating and letting the adults around know how they can support you is really helpful.
No, yeah. I just one quick thing. I know that like sometimes when, or like in the past when I was just like super overwhelmed, like super stressed, I would talk to some of my professors, and I would literally just simply ask like, can I get more help on this, or can I have like just a few more extra days, or can I have like something that can like maybe help me feel less stressed about this, and just like everything going on. And most of my professors and teachers in my past have been like really understanding and like willing to help me. So if you simply just like ask for help and ask for like a little bit, you know, to like really help you, I think a lot of people would be willing to like give you that. So yeah.
I have a couple quick points. One is Sam mentioned up like asking the question, like, is this important? Another question I think helps dealing with like a ton of anxiety when you're going through like that moment is asking, can I control it? I think that helps a lot. Like, can I really control this in my space? And kind of learning the things that you can control, letting go of them. And that's really difficult at times. And I understand that. And that's like something that's challenging constantly, but asking that question. And the other thing is listening to not only your thoughts, but I think listening to your body, like visceral feelings you feel in your body and kind of understanding, okay, where is my body tense? So taking a couple deep breaths, kind of noticing whether if it's your neck, your back, whatever it is, and then decompressing and, okay, gathering yourself, your body, not only your mind, but your body as well, and then continuing on.
Great answers from our panel. And, you know, as we approach the top of the hour, I'm going to turn it back over to your host, Samantha, and you guys can go ahead and start wrapping up.
Very cool. So I'm just something that I do for sit down with Sam is that like after we finish the interview, I kind of like asked like, do you have any like anything else for like anyone that's watching? Kind of just like hopeful little things. So I wanted to do this here too. So I guess I'll just like ask each one of you to kind of like say something. But Andrew, did you want to go first?
Like any final thoughts?
Yeah, just final thoughts.
Oh, I think we covered all the bases. I honestly don't have anything.
Okay. Laura.
So I have like, it's super cheesy, but it's like honestly like a quote that I live by. It's on TikTok, if you know what TikTok is, but it's basically, it says like, start romanticizing your life, which basically like I heard that, and like after you think about it, like just hearing that, like that changed my life, because like you're the main character in your life. Like you can do anything you want, nobody is stopping you. There's going to be hard things, there's going to be good things, like there's just a bunch of different things. But if you have a positive outlook on life, and if you just keep, how do I explain that? Like if you think of the positives, like even like just going to work and stuff, being like, I'm so grateful that I'm here at work today, even though I'm at work, but I'm going to have a fun day with it. I'm going to talk to my coworkers. I'm going to have a good day. If you live your life like that, that's honestly, it's changed my life, just starting to romanticize your life. And yeah, yeah.
Thank you. I love that. Vanessa.
Yeah, I think that if there's one thing that I just want everybody to know is that you matter and you're important, and taking care of yourself is really important. Sometimes the adults that you might ask for help might not be the right adult. So I encourage you to keep advocating for what you need and not stopping until you get it. And yeah, I'm just really happy to be here, and so impressed and inspired by all of the young people on this panel, and all the insights that you gave was really nice to be a part of.
Thank you. Patrick.
I guess is add a little humor to life. I think it's just kind of funny, life in itself. So I kind of just keep that in mind. Like, look, we're imperfect people. We have our quirks, we have our differences, we have our similarities and whatnot. We have the things that make us unique. But yeah, have fun with it. I know it's like, it's a really easier said than done, but do what you love, and always find the little things that you can be inspired by.
Thank you. Katie.
Yeah, something that really gets me through is that it's okay to not be okay. You know, we just wrote a blog post about depression and how it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to reach out for help. Another thing that whenever something is going wrong, I just tell myself, it'll all be all right. Like, this is just a little fraction of your life that you just need to get over that hill, and you are going to be okay. And life is on your side, and you have so many people around you who will love you. And sort of just like what Laura said, is like when you romanticize your life and you become your main character and you do great things for yourself, like go out and buy yourself some flowers if you want, just take that time for yourself and be there for you. And yeah, everything will be okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to like literally echo every single person that said anything just right now, because it was great. It was wonderful. But yeah, really I just want to like echo, like, it's okay not to be okay. Like, seriously, like if you're struggling through anything, like, do not be afraid to reach out for help. Do not be afraid to talk to your friends. Like, let's end the stigma around mental health, and it really starts with all of us just talking, like literally simply just talking to each other. And I think just like conversations like this and like really important conversations are so powerful in not only relationships but like our own like mental well-being. So I really just want to like put that there, make sure we're all talking about our mental health, and yeah, and just like really taking care of ourselves. And I really do hope that everyone watching, learned something, was inspired, anything. I really just hope that you guys take a lot away from this panel. So with that being said, I just want to do a few little shout outs and stuff. So shout out to Caitlin, Ryan, and Allison, my cousins. Love you guys. And also my team, if you're watching, what's up? Okay. Anyway, so 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 I just wanted to remind everyone that mental health first aid training is still it's August 22nd, so please sign up for that if you haven't. It's basically first aid training for mental health. I know I did it. It was so amazing. I loved it so much. So make sure you go to our website to check that out. Also, more events will be announced soon, so make sure that you follow us at our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and you can find that all at zcares.org. So just go to zcares.org. Okay, so thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully see you soon. All right, bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you guys.